talk about things.
Fair enough. All right, let's just 1 second.
You
It's setting up.
would, of course.
I know.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
setting up to put us on YouTube, so just give me a second while we set up, and we should be ready to go. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. It is good to be with you online. Some people are watching this to catch up. Some people are watching this for the first time as we are learning to lead Jewish prayer. So we will begin. Let me share my PowerPoint. All right, we're doing it successfully. Love to see that. So, tonight we are talking about Iyun Tefilah, right? Or expounding on prayer, writing kavanot and divrei Torah for worship. Kavanot, Iyunim, so in Iyun Tefilah, or to make it short, just the plural of Iyun, Iyunim, or kavanot. Divrei Torah are different, but Iyunim and kavanot are going to be very similar. Things you say along with prayer. So, what are we learning tonight? So, until now, you've been learning to lead the words that other people wrote, liturgy. Tonight, you start writing your own. A kavanah here, Dvar Torah there. We'll get to those things. These are the moments when your voice carries Torah. This is where you teach someone. So what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about what Iyun Tefilah is. We're talking about how to write a kavanah. We're talking about how to write a Devar Torah. And we're talking about the language and voice we use when we use English and Hebrew, transliteration and translation in our words. So to get started, Iyun Tefilah, or the study or deepening of prayer. An Iyun Tefilah is a moment when the leader, the Shaliach Tzibur, offers a brief teaching that helps the congregation enter a prayer with greater kavanah, greater intention, right? And
greater attention too, right?
Maybe, but it's not about attention. I mean, they're there. They're supposed to be paying attention. Right. You can't fix that for them if they're not.
Intention is their.
But intention, remember, this is, so we're bringing here, the keva is already on the page. The words of our liturgy are already on the page. Right. But kavanah is something everyone also needs to bring to prayer. You can help them with kavanah by setting an intention, by doing Iyun Tefilah, by deepening prayer through teaching. And there are two main vehicles by which we do that teaching. A kavanah, which again, we said we need kavanah, but a kavanah or is a statement of intention. So kavanah means intention, and this is very small for you, so I'm just reading it. It says, a brief meditation that orients the worshiper, right? Ideally, kavanot will be brief, and they will just help the person understand where they are in the prayer service, where they are in the Jewish year, maybe, if you're going there, and of course, getting them ready to pray. Vehicle number 2, the main second one, is Devar Torah. Now, this is done at a very specific time. Devar Torah means word of Torah or matter of Torah. And of course, a Devar Torah is shorter than a sermon, but longer than an Iyun or a Kavanah. It's usually 3 to 5 minutes instead of a paragraph or two. We'll get to that. I won't spoil it. I think
Devar, in this case, is being used as the word of Torah.
It can be a word of Torah or a matter of Torah. Devar means thing or matter or word. Divrei can mean words, but it can also mean things, right? Like it also means things or categories or matters. But it also means words. In this case, there's a mixture. Okay, so let's talk kavanot. So, what is a kavanah? It is generally a paragraph or two, 4 or 5, maybe 6 sentences, and written down ahead of time to be read aloud. Right? This is not the same as, look, some Christian leaders like to do this, and I'm sure there are Jews who are good at it too, but it's never been me. They're like, I'll just feel it. And when the moment comes, I'll say something about the prayer that's brilliant. Now, if you've been doing it as long as me, not that I can do it brilliantly, but again, I did this on the first class. I said, if you want to introduce me Chamocha, you could say our prayer for redemption. That's like a one-line Iyun, right? Because it's setting them, where are we in the service? We're at Michamocha. And what should I know about Michamocha? It's a prayer that speaks, its blessing, its Hatimah, deals with Ga'al Yisrael, with redemption. Mm-hmm. So if you just do that, that's the minimum. That's the very minimum. Now, that's not really what we mean when we say an Iyun or a Kavanah. When we say write a Kavanah, we generally mean this: 1 or 2 paragraphs, 4 to 6 sentences, not long, a minute or two, if that. A minute, if you can get it under a minute, it should be under a minute, ideally. Because you're not, again, it's not a Devar Torah. You're just trying to set up the prayer, right? You're the opening act, if you want to put it in a theater term. You're not there to replace the prayer. That's a separate thing. You're there to introduce the prayer.
In music, you're a prelude.
Yes, fair enough. And you don't want to overwhelm the prayer. That would be bad. Where do we do these in our service? Now, you can always look back at last week's. Yeah, you have it there. The cue sheet. But you'll see these come true. It's true here too. Where are they? There before the Shema. It says intro to Shema before Michamocha. There's no anywhere. Basically, look anywhere where there isn't a page number on the left, and that's a place where you do an Iyun. You can also do it before the Amidah, before Mishaberach. And together, this gives you 5 or 6 total opportunities to speak your own words to help guide congregants in prayer. So these are your opportunities, right? And again, it says here, its purpose: orient the worshiper to what the prayer is about and how to enter it. Not to explain, to open, right? In Iyun, a kavanah is not just, this is why I said, say, it's not just, this is the prayer. It is the prayer for redemption. That's true, but that one line isn't really a kavanah because it's not grounding you in anything. To be a kavanah, I'd want to add a couple more sentences. Something like, and again, I haven't written anything. This is just off the top of my head. But you might want to add something like, standing at the sea, the people were scared. They didn't know what would happen. And the relief they felt on the other side, see, we're bringing in emotions. We're helping people think about it. You could say the relief they felt on the other side made them want to sing with gratitude. Right? Now they're about to sing. You've told them how to sing now. You've brought a couple in just 2 sentences. You added so much to just, this is mi chamocha. It is a prayer for redemption. Now, if you're running tight on time, I've had services where I just say, well, I don't give a full Iyun. You don't always have to do one in every one of these places.
But one of them would be useful.
1 or 2 at least. I try and do 3 or 4 of them. I try and do 3 of them in every service.
You're prepared to have that.
Well, yes, I write 3. I write at least 3 of these for every service I do.
We could have 3 with a little post-it saying, go to A.
You should, again, these are written down ahead of time. You should have these on a piece, the Iyunim, the Kavanot, on a piece of paper. I keep them actually separate from my book, but I don't do the post-its anymore. Back when I did the post-its, I would write all of the words of my Iyun on post-its down the page, just stacking them.
But post-its, if I did it, would tell me, hey, go to letter A. And
Well, that's the other thing. Well, it's fine to do that. It might be a little small. I just make sure when you set those things up that you can read what you're going to say in the setting you're going to be in. Some people are like, "Oh, I'll write really small," and then they don't realize that you're not sitting over your prayer book like this when you leave. You're standing up and you're a foot and a half, 2 feet away from it, and then 3 feet maybe if you're tall. And then it's really small and you can't see it. And people make that mistake all the time. And they're like, "Oh, I thought I was so smart. I wrote it so small so I could fit all the words." And it's like, okay, but like you didn't test whether you could read it, standing at the bima, on the bima. So there you go. Not you, people who would do that. Okay. The three elements. Every strong kavanah does three things. You don't have to memorize the structure. I said memorize the structure, but you don't really have to memorize it. But as you do it, it will get easier each time to do these three things. Now, I don't do all three of these every time, but again, I'm a special case. I find that this is a good way to teach people to do it for the first time. So the first thing is to ground it. Name the prayer and what it's about, right? That first line. What was our first line for Mi Chamocha?
Prayer of joy and redemption.
The prayer of redemption. Great. That's the first part. Mi Chamocha is our prayer for redemption. Right? Here it says, Mi Chamocha recalls the moment the Israelites crossed the Sea of Reeds. So again, you can set it up from the theological side, prayer for redemption, or you can set it up from the historical side. The people were at the sea. Both are fine setups in this situation. Then we want to bridge to lived experience, something that the people in the kahal, in the congregation, can connect to. Not your lived experience necessarily, but a shared lived experience. So connect to something real and current. Example, each of us carries something we need to be freed from. A fear, a grief, a habit that holds us back. Right? So now we have two parts. Mi Chamocha recalls the moment the Israelites crossed the Sea of Reeds. And then we might say, to tie to this, the moment they crossed from slavery to freedom. Each of us carries something we need to be freed from. These things. And then an invitation, right? Because after all, the point of a kavanah is to bring them with you into the next prayer. And so now you give them something to do. As we sing tonight, hold in your mind one thing you are ready to leave behind. By the way, this is a full Iyun. If you wrote here, Mi Chamocha recalls the moment the Israelites crossed from slavery to freedom. Each of us carries something we need to be freed from, a fear, a grief, a habit that holds us back. As we sing tonight, hold in your mind one thing you are ready to leave behind. Please join us in singing Mi Chamocha on page 158.
All right. That makes sense.
There you go. 4 sentences. You're done. But you did it. That's perfect. By the way, this was the one I wrote years ago. I just broke it out into 3 sections here. But again, it's not that complicated. But if you can do this with any of them. You can do this. Let's think of one. What would you do for Shema? Let's think of Shema before I have an example next for Shema. But I'm just curious before we get to the anatomy of it.
The Shema is the grounding prayer of Judaism. It's the prayer of unity. God is one.
Okay, that's a great opener. The Shema is a prayer of unity, representing that God is one.
Right. Can you see how things that you do really are together and they're related under God?
Sure. And then give them something to do.
When you say the Shema, realize that you're part of the greater process.
Or even better, for what you were talking about, maybe say, as you close your eyes, as we say the Shema tonight, hear your voice among the voices of everyone else, and hear the unity in
that work together. Yes. Yeah.
And again, I got a lot more experience at this, so don't feel. But I'm just saying, when you add that last thing, then it all comes together, and it's a beautiful kavanah. So, okay, yeah, exactly. So here's a worked example. Here's something we can look at. So here's one. We are about to recite the Shema, 6 Hebrew words that Jews have spoken in moments of joy and terror alike. The Shema does not ask us to believe anything complicated. It only asks us to listen. Tonight, close your eyes, shut out the noise of the week, and simply hear. Hear your tradition. Hear the people beside you, which is kind of what you were getting at too. Hear something that matters. Please rise and join us for the Shema on page
that's a nice
152. So that's an example of a kavanah for a Shema. Again, it's not that long. Now let's break it out, because this plays by the same rules I just taught you for our Micha Mocha 3 elements. So actually, before we do that, since you were anyone who was watching online has already seen that slide, but since you're here, only Dr. Bradshaw has joined me this evening here in Topeka, so he's unfortunately the one I get to call on all evening. Unfortunate for him, not for me. So break this out. What are the three? The 3 categories are grounding statement, are bridge to the experience or to lived experience, and then invitation. So what's the grounding statement?
Well, we're about to recite the Shema, the Hebrew words for the Jews have spoken in moments of joy and terror.
Alike, right? Great. That's the grounding statement. We get that, right? We're talking about Jewish peoplehood. We're talking about Jewish history. We're talking about the Shema. We've given them something based in history to go with. Now, what's the bridge to lived experience?
Well, the bridge is listening.
Yes. It doesn't ask us to believe something. This isn't a prayer that's about the messianic age, or maybe when Mashiach comes. It's not about that. It's much simpler.
Well, that's our name, Shmuel, if I remember.
Ours, yes, right. But still, in this, so we're saying this thing here. We're connecting them, saying this is an easy lift for you. It should be. And then we're saying, what are we asking them to do? We're asking them to shut out the noise of the week
and listen
and simply hear. Hear your tradition. In this one, we used hear rather than listen, but it's fine. You could say listen. Listen to your tradition. You could say either one. It's fine. And here is our breakdown thing. The 3 elements in the text. I broke it down slightly differently here. This was the grounding statement. This was the bridge to lived experience. And the invitation was to hear your tradition, the people beside you, and something that matters. So those are our things. When you do it in this way, it's very easy. You can put them together. If you take an hour the week of the service, you can do 3 iyunim or 3 kavanot in an hour, and then you're done. You've done it all. So all of those are very easy to go with.
Those sound like things that'd be useful to memorize, and then
memorize is fine, but again, as long as you have it on a piece of paper somewhere, you don't have to have it memorized. And as you do it, if you do it with any kind of regularity, it's not even a terrible practice to get into as a meditative practice, as a spiritual practice. If you're getting ready for Shabbat each week, maybe take an hour on Friday midday or afternoon before Shabbat and say, I really want to sit down and write a couple of iyunim. I really want to write a couple of kavanot down so that I can, not just for practice, but so that I can ground myself in Shabbat. And by doing that, you'd get so much practice that a year in, you'd be as good as me. And then suddenly you'd be like throwing out kavanot everywhere, being like, I could do this in my sleep. But practice, like everything, is really the way to get good. A word of Torah for worship, or Dvar Torah. So you may not do a Devar Torah. I say this to anyone who might be watching. The Devar Torah sometimes for our service leaders. Now, the service leader can give the Devar Torah. Some of them don't feel comfortable, and so someone else is invited to give a Devar Torah. But if you are comfortable, this is relevant to you. So I told you before, 3 to 5 minutes. It's longer than the less than a minute of a kavanah. A Devar Torah is a short teaching. It's not a sermon. A short teaching on the weekly portion, one idea, one central idea. You can have a 3-point. You can have 3 points to illustrate your idea, but you want to have a thesis. When I say one idea, I mean we're talking about something from the portion with a thesis connected to Shabbat. So so those are all important points, right? It says not a sermon, not a lecture, a doorway. Open it, walk people through it, close it. This is the way you will write a Dvar Torah. What it is not, again, is a sermon or a lecture. It is not long, and it is not a chance for, unfortunately, sorry, I'm the only person who gives sermons here. It's not an official rule, but in practice, I'm the only person who gives sermons here. Divrei Torah are not sermons. Sermons can be about anything. They can be. I just gave a sermon last Friday night that was basically about J.D. Vance. But you can go back and watch that. But this is not a sermon. This is shorter, and the idea of it, and we'll get into exactly the steps of how to write one in a second. The idea of it is that we want to be able to say, this week's Torah portion is X. What is this week's? This week's is a double portion. It's Hukat Balak. And of all the great things that happen in it, one of the sad things that happens is, of course, Miriam dies, and then immediately afterwards, Moses and Aaron are confronted by the people, and they want water. This is a famous scene. Moses says, "You rebels, fine," and strikes the rock to force it to give water. God is displeased.
That's right. That's why he doesn't get to go to the.
I'm not going to talk about everything in this portion. I'm going to pick one thing to talk about. So if I want to talk about Miriam's death, I'm not going to talk about the rock. Oh. And if I want to talk about the rock, I'm not going to talk about Miriam's death because we're not doing the greatest hits of the portion. Pick an idea, and then we're going to bring Jewish tradition to bear, explain to the people how the idea that you're playing into with the thing from the Torah portion, how they mesh, and then we're going to summarize, and then we're done. So again, it says 400 to 600 words. I know I put that there because that's how long mine generally are. I speak pretty fast though, generally, so 600 words for you, maybe 7 or 8 minutes, and then I would say definitely stick to 400. You know what I mean? I can do 600 words in under 5 minutes. If you can speak that fast, then you're welcome to do as many words as you can fit in 5 minutes.
Have it there for you.
What?
This section of Word of.
Yeah. No, I can send you the whole PowerPoint. You can have every slide in the thing.
But when you running a service.
Oh yeah.
Do you write this a word of Torah for worship? This is the section, which is the Devar.
Do I write a Devar Torah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I write Divrei Torah a lot. I used to write more. Nowadays, I do a lot more sermons than I used to. I used to almost exclusively do Divrei Torah when I got here, both because they're shorter and because they're very structured. You say, this is the idea from the portion. This is the scene in the portion. Right. This is my idea. Here's how the commentators and the Talmud and whatnot think about what I've said. And here's how we can wrap this up.
But we don't, if we're leading a service, give a sermon then. You said you.
No, yeah. I was joking mostly when I said I'm the only one who gives sermons. The idea is, if you were leading a service, this is what you're going for. Not a sermon.
All right.
And no, we don't give you the option of a sermon. It's like you're supposed to, if you're leading a service, you're supposed to do this. This is what we're looking for from our lay leaders, not sermons. Sermons are a lot harder. First of all, they're longer. Second of all, they have a structure and it's different. The 3-point structure of a sermon is very different from, a little different at least, from this. So they're just different. I wouldn't teach you to write a sermon this way.
I have a question. I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing a bar mitzvah.
Yes.
Is this
This.
the Devar Torah? Oh, that's easy.
Well, that's
I was
what the bar
gonna give
mitzvah
us
kids
something.
do. They do 3 to 5 minutes. Yours is welcome to be. Look, it's your bar mitzvah. If you want to do 7 minutes, go for it.
But not 20.
Well, the problem with a sermon is, so here's my thing about sermons, and this is maybe just me, but my problem with sermons, not problem, I love sermons. When people come and hear a sermon, there's a lot of background I think you need to know, and often that involves understanding a person's style, and for people to get into a sermon, and for someone to get good enough at sermons for them to be enjoyable, it takes a lot of. It's a lot harder than this. Again, is what I'm trying to say. So we ask you to do this because this is a lift that you are. We're not trying to put a stumbling block before you. You know how long it takes for rabbis to get good at sermons? A lot of them never do. Divrei Torah are a lot easier. So I'm begging you to understand that this is a kindness. By if you want to do a sermon, we can work on sermons. But sermons are a different. I can send you a whole article on the 3-point sermon.
To keep my second 5 minutes.
But
Easy to say because I worked for years on life is conflict, and a conflict can be between man and man, but for Jacob, it's between God and man.
True. Yes, absolutely.
And therefore, he got the name of Israel.
And by the way, it's not just biblical commentators you can bring in. You can bring modern commentators. Sure. So you can say, Rashi says about Jacob's dream. Oh man, imagine if you have Jacob's dream and you're a psychiatrist, you could be like, this is what Rashi says, and this is what I say on this article I wrote 20 years ago on this, and here's how I think differently about it now. And then you wrap up, and you've done a brilliant, interesting Devar Torah for everyone. There's really no need to make it more complicated.
It be long. I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, I can ask you too.
No, go for it. Yeah.
As far as I can tell, there's only 3 people in Genesis who changed their names: Abraham, Sarah, and Jacob.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Because we didn't change Ishak.
Ishak?
Well,
Esau, you mean?
Yitzhak.
Oh, Yitzhak. Right.
Yitzhak,
Yeah. Isaac. Yeah. No, Isaac's name doesn't get changed. Neither. Yeah.
No?
No, Isaac's name doesn't need to get changed. None of the other ladies besides Sarah need to get their names changed. And Jacob doesn't need to have it changed. He has it changed because of his experience.
Yeah.
And his stress dream. Sorry, not a stress dream. His encounter with God.
His struggle.
His struggle. What's his in German? His thing.
If.
Yeah, Kampf, right? His struggle. Anyway. Okay. So here we've got here's how you can do this, and here are 5 steps on how to write. I will read them to you, but I'll also send this to you so
Yes.
you can see it.
I'm going to say.
So 5 steps to write a Devar Torah. So first, here's the easiest I can make it. First, start with the text. Always a good idea. Now, you don't have to start it like a bar mitzvah student who always starts it with Shabbat Shalom. My Torah portion is Truma. Truma means gifts. It's called that because you don't have to. You can do that. You don't have to. It's a very boring way to start a Devar Torah, but you can start with the text. You don't have to start with it boringly, but you should start with the text. So the first thing you should do in writing a Devar Torah is read the portion. Read the whole portion twice, and then identify one section, verse, image, or moment that sticks out to you. Right? There's a whole book series called What's Bothering Rashi.
Okay.
Why? Because Rashi's commentary is spurred by the things he is he goes, I don't really get that. Where does this come from? What is it? So what sticks out to you? What stuck out to him? Again, reading the portion with Rashi especially first is a good idea because between the portion and Rashi, you'll get Talmud also, which can be helpful in your interpretation. Number two, ask a question, right? Again, the question of Rashi was what's bothering Rashi. So figure out what sticks out to you about the thing you're interested in. If it's this week and it's Miriam's death, why does the Torah tell us about this? What's surprising about this scene? Spur a question, invite a question, or just straight out say the question. But in one way or another, prompt a question. Right? Miriam dies, and we don't know how her brothers react. Isn't that strange? Even when Aaron's sons die, we get, even though it's a non-reaction, we get an explanation saying, and Aaron was silent. Where's their reaction? Right? That's a question you can ask about the text, and it's an interesting one.
Sure.
And it draws people in. And then three, let's get sources. The Meforshim, a commentator, a Midrash, the Talmud. Again, Rashi's really useful because he'll bring in Midrash and Talmud, and he'll bring the stuff in because he's been wondering this stuff for a lot longer than us. You can also bring in modern voices, Heschel, Sachs. I love to bring both. They're two of my favorites. I use Heschel and Sachs. I used to use Heschel a lot more. I use him a little less now. But
is that Oliver Sacks?
No, a Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha.
Because I know
the former chief rabbi of the UK, who passed away a couple of years ago. So you can bring a modern voice too. If it's relevant, you can even bring a voice from something that's not quite Torah. One or two insights. It says here one insight is enough. That's technically true. I like to get at least two sources. I don't want to base a whole thing. I don't want to bring in just... So what you got to do here is you got to find a commentator who talks about the thing you're talking about. Here's what I would do for my two sources if we were talking about the Miriam situation. I might find a Rashi text or something, or a Midrash that talks about this, that says, well, here's how the brothers might have reacted, or maybe here's what the Torah says about that. And then you could bring in, you'd be great at this, you could bring in some psychiatric source that says, but you know what's really telling? The very next scene is when Moses and Aaron are confronted by the people and they handle it all wrong. And then you say, it reminds me of when my teacher, Carl Menninger, or whoever you want to say, taught this about loss and grief. And how it invites people to be short or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but you would know. And you say it, and you say, so there you've got Rashi, and you've got a modern source that brings in modern knowledge, but is part of understanding the Torah.
I used to teach Dr. Carl's handling of stress, and my portion has to do with the stress between Asaph and the Lord. Actually.
Absolutely. So again, that would be a perfect opportunity to bring in. You should say, I taught for years.
Yeah.
My teacher, Dr. Carl Menninger's thoughts on this, and I want to share how I think it applies to this situation here in the Torah. Perfectly good and acceptable and really interesting, because at this point you're bringing in expertise. You're bringing in something you know about, which is always more interesting than someone spouting their opinion. Believe me, as someone who spouts his opinion on a weekly basis from the Bima, it's much more interesting to have expertise. Something people know about play a role. So now you brought sources, one, maybe two, like in that instance, we brought two sources. Now we're going to make it personal. Now, it doesn't have to be really personal. So I say connect to real life. It can be your real life. So if we're talking about loss, I'm using the Miriam example still. Mm-hmm. If we're talking about, now, next slide, you'll see why Truma was on my mind. But for the Miriam example, you could say connect to real life. Now you could talk about your loss, especially anyone who's lost a sibling. That would be a really good, if you're talking about Moses and Aaron losing a sibling, having personal knowledge of that would be a real punch of a delivery on this. If you don't, that's fine too. You can also connect it to the community's life. Is there something the community needs to understand about loss? It doesn't have to be about a person. It could be even, quite frankly, this synagogue still thinks there are 500 member families here, like there were 20 years ago. 25 years ago. Sorry, 20 years ago.
They probably still think the Tiger Foundation.
Right, exactly. They still think that that's the case. But guess what? It's not.
It's not.
That's a kind of loss.
Absolutely.
And they're neglecting it. They're ignoring it. They're in denial. That would be the best of our Torah of all time. But
I happen to have heard Margaret Mead say that Tefilah was the only psychiatric tribe in the world. And now
I'm sure we had a higher percentage.
Just like there is none.
Right, I bet that sounds very true. So again,
it was a home for some.
I believe it. And I wish it was still here myself. For not totally selfish reasons. Connect to real life. So again, yours, the communities, or the world's. Again, this is where if there's a global issue, loss is terrible. Sometimes people overreact to it. You could talk about how in the world people do that. So then you do that, and then you end with a takeaway. One thought to carry into Shabbat, right? This is how you want to be able to end on the words. I try and tell myself this whenever I write the Torah. You don't want to just end it. You want to be able to end with the words, Ken Yehi Ratzon. Or may it be God's will. So usually that means you got to write a charge. You got to, not a command. We want this to be an invitation, not quite a charge.
Invitation to learn.
To learn or to think differently or to embrace, if the concern is that Miriam's brothers couldn't face their loss and it led them to do bad things in the eyes of God and led to Aaron's death and Moses not getting to enter the land.
It turned out as bad.
There must be a lesson that modern people can take from failing to face your grief.
In my field, we talk about the aha experience. Repentance means to change your thinking. Metanoia.
Sure. I'm just saying that's what we're going for here.
You just gave me all I need to know how to write that thing.
Well, great.
Except I want to look at Rashi.
Of course, you got to look at Rashi. Okay. So here's, again, we got another worked example. Parashat Trumah. Again, this is way too short. This is not a 3 to 5 minutes of our Torah. But it says here, this week's portion opens with God telling Moses, V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. See, by the way, did I say this week's portion is Parashat Trumah? Parashat Trumah is about, I didn't have to do it like a bar mitzvah student to start with the text. I started with the words. V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. Let them make me a sanctuary and I will dwell among them. The rabbis notice the text says among them, not in it. God does, not in the sanctuary. Build me a sanctuary so I can dwell in the sanctuary. It doesn't say that. It says, build me a sanctuary so I can dwell among them. God does not live in buildings. God lives in the space between people. When they build something sacred together, that is what we do on Friday nights. We come not because God lives in the ark, but because when we gather with kavanah, intention, something holy shows up in the space between us. If I wanted to end Ken Yehi Ratzon and not Shabbat Shalom, I might say, invite might be a little on the nose. I might say, try when you greet someone at Oneg or the next time you greet someone after Shabbat. Try to notice the holiness in that space. Try to notice God there. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Right? We gave them something to do and we're saying we're hoping it comes to pass. Mm-hmm. That's a really short Devar Torah, but it's a Devar Torah. Mm-hmm.
these 20 or 30 minute Devar Torahs is not really what we should be doing.
If anyone gives a 20, 30-minute Devar Torah, I'm leaving. Like if I were a congregant, I would leave. By the way, if somebody gives a 30-minute sermon, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
But a 20-minute sermon, I'll sit through. But a 20-minute Devar Torah, nobody's got enough text to make a 20-minute. Nobody should give 20-minute Devar Torah. Divrei Torah.
That
They
makes
say Devar Torah is like that's Divrei Torah. Speaking of Hebrew and English. So the Talmud reminds us from Sota, prayer in any language is valid. To be fair, it says if you don't understand Hebrew, prayer in any language is valid, but nonetheless, prayer in any language is valid. And Nachmanides, our famous disputant at the Disputation of Barcelona, of course, reminds us that Hebrew is the Lashon HaKodesh. I don't know why it says why I wrote the. Hebrew is Lashon HaKodesh, is the holy tongue, right? The holy language. So here at Temple Beth Shalom, we blend both. We do Hebrew, our prayers in Hebrew for the most part, although a couple in English we will do. But we obviously use everyone speaks English, and so all of these have to be English. What I mean to say here is when you reach for a Hebrew phrase, when you use Hebrew, like I did here, Ve'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. Let them make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them. When you reach for a Hebrew phrase, give the transliteration, not transliteration. You might want to write it for yourself in transliteration, and give the translation to them. Whenever you do Hebrew, translate it afterwards. Don't assume, even if you say something like, it's so important with all the stress in the world not to let shalom bayit, peace in the home, escape us as a main goal of building family life. I didn't say shalom bayit, assuming everyone understood what that was. This isn't the place for that. If I was at a rabbinic conference, I wouldn't translate. But when you're in our sanctuary, we always translate any Hebrew you use. And for yourself, write it in transliteration. That's a good thing to do that. How to bring Hebrew into your Divrei Torah. A little bit on that. And just one thing. One last thing here before there aren't as many people, so fewer questions. So this class is going to be shorter than an hour because it's just me and you and whoever watches after the fact online. How to bring a Hebrew word in. So a couple small habits to keep a Hebrew phrase from sounding like a private code. This is a little bit going over. For you, it'll be helpful probably to italicize the transliteration, as long as you can read italicized writing. Two, as I said, always write the English down after, because you have to give you have to translate it for them. And this is not something they will ever see, but I do it every single time, and I think it's a good practice for you all to do as well. Cite when you quote a source. If you look at this working thing here, you'll see after my translation. No, it's all right. I want you to be able to write and get that down. After my translation, I didn't read this part, right? You heard me read this to you. I didn't read where it says Exodus 25:8, right? But sometimes people come up to you afterwards and say, where was that? I'm just curious. I want to read that or see the commentary on that. What was the source for that? You don't want to say, oh, I looked it up, but then I didn't write it down. Just write it down and put it in the thing. Again, you won't say it. You can. You don't have to say it. But you should have it, right? So cite when you quote a source, so that in case somebody asks you, you can bring it up. Okay. Any questions before we wrap up this evening?
No, this has been very clear.
I'm glad. If it's been clear and helpful, then that's all I was aiming for. Okay. So 3 things to do this week that'd be helpful for you. 1, Find some time to write a short kavanah, to write a kavanah. Pick a prayer. Use the three-element structure of grounding, bridge, and invitation. Again, 4 to 6 sentences. And as a note, you should read it aloud to yourself before you call it done. Make sure anything I'm going to speak, I read out loud before I deliver it. Because inevitably, if I write something, then I go to read it, I'll go, oh, that sounds so bad. Why did I write it that way? Because when you write things, you don't always think about how it's, even if you're a person with inner monologue, you don't always you don't always get that. So it's good to say it out loud. Number 2, if you have the time, write a short Devar Torah of about 400 words on this week's Torah portion. Try to use our thing. One idea, one thesis, essentially 5 steps connected to Shabbat. And then see how long it is in words and time yourself reading it out loud, because that will be a good indication for you to get to start getting to know how fast you talk. I find every rabbi and every public speaker really should know how fast they read 500 words or 1,000 words. If you don't know how fast you read 500 words, you're not ready to give a Devar Torah. You got to know that. I mean, not that you can not know it, but then your timing is just guessing at that point. Knowing it helps you. Let's put it this way. My services usually come within a minute of their thing.
Hour, yeah.
That's an art and a science. You have to know how these things play out, how long things take. Now, you don't need to know as a service leader on your first time leading services exactly how long it takes to sing Mi Chamocha, exactly how long it takes people to stand up and sit down. You get that knowledge over doing it 1,000 times. But you can know how long it takes you to read. That's something you can know before you ever lead a service, and it's a good thing for you to know. And this can help you do it. And the last, read a couple of the things, the meditations, the left side of the page in Mishkan Tefilah. I'm going to come over to you so you can actually see what I'm talking about. Right?
Is that our Mishkan?
Yeah, this is our Mishkan Tefilah. It's regular, real.
When Rabbi Deb was here, I bought a copy. I have it at home, and I use it.
Perfect. So again, Mi Chamocha, this is before Mi Chamocha.
All right.
Right? So we've seen this before. Here's one, standing on the parted shores of history.
Sure.
Right? This is one. The left side of these pages, this has the prayer on the right side.
Sure.
The left side often has these Iyunim.
Sure.
So these kavanot. So again, you've got one at home. We don't need to.
It's done for you.
Right. So no, well, so you can offer those. By the way, it's not forbidden for you to offer the. It's not forbidden for you to offer the kavanot that are in here. But if you do only do that, people will be like, okay, well, we could have done this, right? It's like there's no, we didn't bring anything to the service. Right. It's right. Exactly. So, but reading them, the reason I say read them, read 2 or 3 of them, read a couple, because their length is good. Their tone is good. Their structure is good. So you don't need to do them like that, and hopefully you can do them even better, because these are supposed to be super general and poetic. Yours might be more attuned to this place because you are of this place. But still, it's good to see them because there are things that you can take from that still. Okay, so the last note here. So a kavanah opens the door, a Dvar Torah lights the room, right? This is teaching. Teaching brings people in and illumines their world. When you write these iyunim, these kavanot, these divrei Torah, you are not adding decoration to the service. You are doing the service. Take it seriously, take it warmly, then say it like you mean it. I want to thank everyone who joined us online and who is excited about writing kavanot and divrei Torah for leading services.